the issues affecting Asia's animals and the stories of the people working on their behalf. We'll be taking you on a tour of what's been happening lately in the animal protection space around Asia and also bringing you updates from our huge network of animal protection organizations and our many working groups. Welcome to the Asia for Animals podcast.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Asia for Animals podcast series. I'm Ngọc Anh Nguyen, the lead coordinator of the Asia for Animals Policy Coalitions. And today, we have a very special guest with us, Alessandro Ramazzotti from the International Accountability Project, or IAP. Alessandro is deeply involved in monitoring how development banks finance factory farming and is a key member of the Stop Financing Factory Farming Coalitions, or S3F. Alessandro, welcome to the show.
Hi, Ngokan. Thank you. And thank you for the invitation. Glad to be here.
Yeah, thank you. To start, could you please introduce yourself and tell us a bit about your organization and its missions?
Sure. I'm Alessandro, and I'm originally from Italy, but I'm currently located in Thailand. For the past year and a half, I've been working at the International Accountability Project. It's a great organization that for about 2 decades has been working to shift global development narratives towards community-centered models and away from the current top-down approach, where communities are treated as mere beneficiaries and not as active participants of development processes. We monitor the work that multilateral development banks do, and also the work of the corporations that MDBs, multilateral development banks, finance and involved in their projects. We work with a big network of local partners and other international NGOs worldwide to challenge these development projects that adversely affect the lives of people in various places in the world. We try to address both project-specific issues and general discussions on, for instance, policies where we are trying to change the way in which multilateral development banks think and act. And as part of an International Accountability Project work, we are part of the Stop Financing Factory Farming campaign, coalition, as you said, SFFF. And the SFFF coalition aims to stop all international public financing to industrial animal agriculture. And because it's, as you know, and as listeners may know, it's one of the industrial sectors that contribute the most to climate change. And apart from creating other problems to communities and animals as well. SFFF is a heterogeneous network of global and regional organizations that is working since 2020 to advance the rights of humans, animals, and environment.
Yeah, thank you, Alessandro, for very insightful introductions. Can you explain a little bit more about the primary goals of the International Accountability Projects and how your work fits into these goals?
So, yeah, sure. Thank you, Ngokan. The work of International Accountability Project divides into 3 flows that are data, community organizing, and advocacy. So, as I was saying, when we notice a project that is concerning to communities and communities reach out to us, then we help them with tools and knowledge. We share knowledge and expertise in dealing with multilateral development banks. So we support their actions. We do advocacy with development banks to change narratives and to change policies and produce long-lasting change. And we work on data. So we have a database called the Early Warning System. And that's where my role focuses at the organization. So the Early Warning System is a database that scrapes, monitors the websites of multilateral development banks and scrapes projects as soon as they are disclosed. These allows communities to access information in a timely manner on new proposed or approved projects. And they can, in this way, find out, as much information as possible and possibly act against the project if that's concerning them. So thanks to this constant monitoring, we are also looking at trends within development finance, and in the context of the Stop Financing Factory Farming campaign, I'm the one who works on the Early Warning System, monitoring this flow of projects and projects in the industrial livestock sector. And we are also trying to build an interactive tool for civil society and us as well to monitor investments in industrial agriculture systems over time, starting from the beginning of 2022.
That sounds super interesting and very practical. And I think that this area of work can be quite helpful to many of our audience. And it would be interesting for them to find out more about the different areas within your work. So let me just begin by delving a little bit into this side. So I understand that IAP works to ensure that development is community-led and environmentally sustainable. Could you elaborate on how you support communities in influencing development projects?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So we act as a link between local communities and the banks financing the development projects that have impacts on these communities. The thing is that people affected by development projects may not always be aware of the possible ways to challenge these projects. And it's not their fault. It's the fault of the bank that doesn't disclose enough information and enough details about the project. So, and also how to appeal to like the bank, and like these banks have grievance mechanisms, compliance offices, and safeguard policies that they should abide by. And the companies implementing these projects also have project level grievance mechanisms. And the problem is that these mechanisms are not adequately shared, and people are not aware about this. So we try to empower people to use these mechanisms in order to assert their rights. And we let local communities reach out to us, and we never request them to start such processes. We don't impose our will, of course, it's their choice. In IP's view of how development should look like, communities are at the center. Communities are part of the processes. So we want that to be that way in our actions as well. For instance, recently IAP led an initiative called the Global Advocacy Team that has been a work of like 3-year long work where 7 or 8 local civil society groups were linked with each other, and they worked together to advance community-led development. And they recently released a report on this initiative to uncover their findings and to show to influence policies and push for community-led models to be included in multilateral development banks practices. So we don't work on a specific sector. Lately, at IAP, we focused a lot on climate change, climate justice aspects, and topics. So we worked on the energy sector and also with SFFF on animal agriculture. So that's about it. I hope it was clear enough.
Yeah, it was very clear. It's very insightful and easy to understand. You explained very clearly how you're supporting the communities, and just to be extra clear, I would like to go into another interesting aspect of the work as well. So one of the major issues that I think you are working on is how development banks are financing factory farming, like you explained before. So could you explain how these banks are involved in these activities and why this is problematic?
Yeah, that's a good question. Thank you. Multilateral development banks provide billions to all sectors, including industrial animal agriculture. And they provide funds not only to the farm itself, but also to other parts of the value chains of industrial animal agriculture, which is a problem that we believe to be a problem. And it's a big problem because, for instance, to be more precise, according to provisional data that we collected between 2022 and 2024 until now, the 16 development banks that we track with the early warning system invested about $15 billion in direct livestock production and primary inputs. That means feed, animal feed, and vaccines. Livestock operations and animal feed production are activities that result in large emissions of greenhouse gases, and in the continuation of a sector that has been repeatedly accused for the role it's playing in accelerating the climate crisis, and for the level of safeguards for animal rights, and also for its impacts on local communities, in terms of water sources depleting and pollution of the soils and so on. So the impacts of this sector is huge. And the fact that multilateral development banks keep financing the sector of which they also acknowledge the impacts is absurd to us, and we are trying to stop that. Even though they recognize the adverse impacts that factory farming has, they keep financing its expansion, and that's just unbelievable. And we would like multilateral development banks to finance alternative systems, alternative food systems that could save the planet, promote alternative, more healthy diets for humans, and smaller scale production, as well as safer standards for animals. In 2021, if I'm not wrong, according to the World Bank, the livestock industry contributed about 14.5% of global anthropogenic emissions of greenhouse gases. And we believe that multilateral development banks should divest from this sector because they cannot divest from oil and coal and keep financing livestock farming at the same pace they're doing now, because otherwise the climate change will continue accelerating. And yeah, that's what's likely to happen with a business as usual scenario. Of course, yeah, we were happy to notice better practices as well, which are defined as broadly defined and broadly understood as mitigation and adaptation efforts that MDBs have tried to promote, and we would like to see those scaled up, those promoted more, in order to advance better practices in the sector.
Thank you for the explanations. And while we're on the topic, I want to learn a little bit more about S3F, or Stop Financing Factory Farming coalitions. Could you tell us a little bit more about the coalitions, its members, and maybe its goals? I would like to find out more about the people who are working to stop factory farming investments.
Yes. So SFFF, Stop Financing Factory Farming. It's a coalition, it's a network of organizations that are concerned by the investments mentioned just now. So they want to see multilateral development banks, public money not being used to finance the expansion of factory farming. The coalition was launched in 2020 by a group of 4 global NGOs. But nowadays, we count more than 25 partners worldwide. And our focus region, because of the problems that have affected it for long in relation to factory farming, is Latin America, but at the same time we work worldwide to address all instances where we notice financing to factory farming. It's organizations within the SFFF network may focus on different topics, from environmental issues to human rights or animal rights. So it's not like we all have we all focus on the same issues, but at the same time we all have a common goal, which is to end all public financing to industrial animal agriculture. And it's a goal that in many ways touches upon all of the issues different organizations within the network work on. That means environment, human rights, animal rights. So it's a topic that can unite many people from different backgrounds. So yeah, that's who we are, and
Yeah, I agree with your opinion that these issues can unite a lot of our colleagues and also people working on other sectors as well, because we share our common goals. To head to our next questions, I would like to dive a little bit deeper into the early warning system, which you mentioned is one of your most useful tool. Can you explain what the early warning system is about in greater details, and how it helps in your advocacy work? I think it will be super interesting for the audience to find out more about the system and see if they can collaborate.
Yes, the early warning system is a database which automatically scrapes the disclosure pages of 16 multilateral development banks every 7 seconds, if I'm not wrong. It collects information on development projects as soon as they are disclosed by the banks, so that communities can access this information in a timely manner and preferably ahead of the approval of the project, so the approval date. The early warning system was launched in 2016, and it supports the involvement of local communities in development processes. And the information on the early warning system is reviewed and published regularly by IAP team, and it's provided in an accessible format so as to allow it to reach as many people as possible. It is also a good way to track development projects, civil society organizations' responses and actions, and to understand investment trends, which in turn can also help design advocacy strategies. The early warning system within the SFFF coalition covers more or less the same role. That means we share regular updates with the network, with our coalition members, to keep them up to date with the trends in factory farming financing and to identify concerning projects early on in the development process. This allows SFFF as a network or partners to raise appropriate concerns ahead of the project approval date, and if needed, have more opportunities to engage with the banks in discussions about the project or demand its cancellation and distribute information to civil society organizations potentially affected by projects' impacts. So it's a collaborative project. The early warning system is a collaborative project. So of course, if anyone has information about a specific project and they want to share them with IAP, we are always ready to hear from people and details on a certain project, or if anyone wants to access the database, if it can be useful for their work, for sure they can reach out to us and we'll give access.
Yeah. On that note, I think that the next logical questions is how effective has the early warning system been in identifying and addressing harmful projects financed by development banks in the industrial agriculture sector? Would you share some story with us?
Yeah. So during these years of collaboration between the early warning system and SFFF, thanks to the early warning system, we were able to identify proposed direct investments in the livestock industry multiple times. And every time, thanks to this early identification of potentially harmful projects, we could act on them in a better way. For instance, a recent case that comes to mind, a recent action that SFFF carried on, was last year when in just 1 month we organized a very coordinated action against a loan to a Brazilian dairy giant company. And despite extensive proof that we collected about animal maltreatment and opposition from numerous civil society organizations from Brazil and from other countries as well, but also from Brazil, despite all of these, the IFC, the International Finance Corporation, approved the loan, which, if I'm not wrong, was $75 million. But what I want to say is that, thanks to the early warning system, we spotted this investment early on, and we could at least try to stop it. In 2022, again, thanks to the early warning system, we identified another loan from the IDB Invest, which is the private sector arm of the Inter-American Development Bank. They were going to finance Marfrig Global Foods, and which is a large corporation involved in factory farming. And in the end, SFFF as a network finally succeeded in stopping these loan to Marfrig Global Foods. The IDB Invest decided not to approve the loan in favor of the company. So that's another example, a successful one. And another proposed operation that we tried to stop in a very, very strong way was loan to Louis Dreyfus Company, one of the largest corporations in the world involved in livestock farming. And again, we identified this project early on thanks to the early warning system. Also, apart from these very strong actions, during the year and a half that I've been working at IP, SFFF or partners sent letters of concern to different multilateral development banks many times in response to loans identified and shared by the early warning system. So these are considered as more softer actions, but still a way to let the development banks know that we are watching them, we're monitoring what they do in industrial animal agriculture, in the industrial animal agriculture sector. Soon I hope we can have this tool to understand investment trends for the past 2 years and more, hopefully. And I hope we could also use the early warning system to support the design of efficient advocacy strategies based on the trends we observe. And that the early warning system can support SFFF and IP and partners in other ways apart from the ones that it's being used now for.
That is super impressive. And I would advise the audience to check out the website of the early warning system at ews.rightsindevelopment.org for more information about their upcoming projects and how you can collaborate with the International Accountability Project to make a difference. So based on the informations that you just shared with us, would you agree that development banks lack strong policies despite their commitments to sustainable development goals?
Yeah, they should have definitely better policies when it comes to environmental and social safeguards. There should be in general more attention to animal rights, I believe, and also more consideration for value chain impacts, especially on the environment, on human rights, for instance, forced labor and workers' rights. And a change of mindset is also needed in order to stop considering industrial livestock systems as essential for the continuation of life on Earth. And projects in the industrial animal agriculture sector must always be considered as high risk, and appropriate safeguards must apply, which is not always the case, as we observed. These policies, MDB's policies can change in a way that addresses these points. On a more general note, the IFC For instance, the International Finance Corporation committed to align all its operations with the Paris Agreement by July 1st, 2025. But considering that, according to our provisional data, the IFC invested more than 1 billion in industrial livestock systems during the past 2 years and a half, the commitment they gave of aligning with the Paris Agreement seems to be far in sight. Banks, according to how I see it, have two preferred ways to circumvent their policies and to exploit the loopholes in there. And these are the increased involvement of financial intermediaries. That means they rely on the market intermediation offered by commercial banks or funds to distribute their investments. And the other is through the implementation or the design of national policies, which then justify or facilitate their investments in specific industries or sectors, including factory farming. So, yeah, they have policies in place that could be better, and at the same time, they try to circumvent the little good that it's in there. So, I would say they're not doing a great job at the moment, but they have been improving during the years. So it's getting slowly better, and there's the need for more civil society organizations pushing them to change in order for these changes to happen. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Sure. And to go a little bit more specific into these stories, can you share some examples so our audience can understand a little bit better on how these loopholes were exploited by the banks and how your coalitions responded, so they can get a clearer picture on the kind of work that you're leading and how other colleagues could join your efforts?
Yes, of course. So we recently sent letters of concern on two intermediate investments. So yeah, they were involving large European banks, namely like De Lage Landen, which is a subsidiary of the Dutch big bank, Rabobank, and another bank called Banco Santander. So both these investments were going to support corporations operating in Brazil, potentially in the livestock sector. And both the banks that would intermediate these investments were linked to deforestation in the recent past. So we argued with the IFC and MIGA, the two arms of the World Bank Group. We argued that MDBs, they should not finance these institutions, fueling the climate crisis with public money and without appropriate checks on how the money would be spent. They are not transparent at all. So they claimed multiple times that confidentiality was an issue they couldn't overcome, so they could not share about the specific investments. And that is, of course, a problem of transparency that we highlighted. But yeah, confidentiality kept coming in our way when we tried to find out information. So yes, those are two projects that we responded to. And these, both De Lage Landen and Banco Santander were going to invest in food, in the agri-food sector in Brazil. So most probably livestock farming. We also responded to a project lately financing the implementation of the Bangladesh Nationally Determined Contribution Plan, which includes provisions apparently aiming to industrialize the livestock sector in Bangladesh, with potential harmful impacts on animals and the environment. And we suggested to the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank and the Asian Development Bank, the two financiers of the operation, to engage the Bangladeshi government in talks in view of the intended upcoming review of the nationally determined contribution that is foreseen for next year. So we tried to do that. We didn't receive a reply, but that shows how multilateral development banks are trying to push for increasingly industrialized livestock systems using policies and financial intermediaries.
Thank you so much. And to follow up, would you want to highlight any significant successes S3F has achieved in stopping or mitigating the impacts of factory farming projects?
Yeah, with pleasure. In 2022, as I was saying before, we convinced the IDB Invest to stop an investment in Murphy Global Foods operations in Brazil. Back then, I was not yet with the campaign, with the coalition, but they collected signatures of hundreds of local and global civil society organizations concerned about the loan. We have been in touch with Bankwatch and EcoAction, which are two of our European partners, to support their long-term advocacy in support of the communities adversely affected by the operations of industrial poultry farms in the Vinnytsia region of Ukraine, and that are owned by a huge vertically integrated agribusiness named MHP, which has been ignoring local communities' demands for years while receiving billions in public financing from multiple multilateral development banks. So this is not yet a success, but a very important fight we contributed to, although partly. And we have also supported the force of indigenous communities of Santo Domingo de los Chilas to raise their voices against the operations of a large poultry factory in Ecuador owned by Pronaca. It's been another years-long campaign, and the voices of local communities are finally starting to be heard. But yeah, Pronaca in the past received considerable amounts of public funds. And yeah, the damages it's caused on local communities are extended and heavy. So SFF has been greatly supporting the indigenous communities in Santo Domingo to uphold their rights. So yeah, this is another long-term fight we have been engaged.
Thank you so much. So according to your opinion, how do these successes influence incremental changes and development policies and practices?
So yeah, slowly we are starting to see a change of mindset in MDBs, multilateral development banks, studies, and communication material. More and more, they seem to be realizing that agri-food systems need to change, and that animals have rights which must be respected, and also that they have a role to play in for these changes to happen. For instance, we could see that in the latest report from the World Bank that is entitled Recipe for a Livable Planet, as well as in other reports from international institutions such as the International Labour Organization. And yeah, so these reports show that a change is slowly happening. And which is good, because after years of pushing, it's very good to see some change. We hope that these reports, these communications materials will also be reflected into practice, and we'll see less industrial livestock farming being financed. Yeah, and about the practices, actually, we noticed that the Inter-American Development Bank seems to be increasingly financing smaller scale indigenous farming practices in the Latin American Caribbean region. And this could also be considered as a belated, possibly slow, but positive practice. So yeah, that's it. And yeah, international organizations are actually slowly advocating for plant-based diet and more responsible food systems. So yeah, we hope to see these incremental changes increasing in the future.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. Um, so I was just wondering, like, in what practical ways can our listeners and our colleagues out there do to support your efforts and contribute to the fight against financing factory farming?
So the first and most direct way is to get in touch with us. We would love to hear your stories related to the impacts of factory farming in your context. Any story you want to share, we are ready to listen. And we're always looking for people to connect with who can share experiences, knowledge, time, and passion. If you feel as we do, concerned by the current state of agri-food systems and believing that agri-food systems could be better for people, animals, and the planet, then for sure you should get in touch with us. And you can support our social media presence by resharing our posts and help to distribute information about the adverse impacts of factory farming and the role that multilateral development banks play in these systems. You can also subscribe to our weekly newsletter and stay up to date with the trends and with the latest projects financing factory farming systems.
Thank you. Looking ahead, what are the next steps for IAP and SBF in your campaign against the financing of factory farming?
So we are, as I was saying, hopefully soon going to release an interactive tool to explore investment trends and data in the agricultural livestock industry. And then we are currently working on that through the support of the early warning system. And that will hopefully inform our advocacy strategies and the ones of our partners in the upcoming international advocacy fora, such as the COP29, the Financing Commons Summit, and others. We are also looking forward to enlarging our movement, reaching more and more people, and together unite our efforts to stop financing factory farm. And as part of this, I hope to share information about multilateral development banks' role in factory farming systems, to share them as broadly as possible so that people are aware of this issue. We are also organizing a public webinar soon for our partners in the global majority, so please feel free to join and learn more about SFFF activities and other ways to connect and support. Of course, anytime, feel free to reach out to me at Alessandro at accountabilityproject.org to start receiving the weekly newsletters and follow SFFF activities on our social media and website for the latest events. That's stopfinancingfactoryfarming.com. That's it.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Alessandro. The stories you shared, as as well as the practical insights have been very valuable, especially for people working on farm animal welfare. So before we wrap up, is there anything else you would like to share with our listeners?
Thank you very much, Ngokan. It was a great pleasure for me to participate as well. And thank you for the invitation. I think these are great initiatives. So thank you, Asia for Animals, as well, for coming up with this podcast idea. It's a great initiative to share information broadly and in an accessible format so that people acquaint themselves with the topic, and we build a global movement in this way, and that's what we should always try to do in order to achieve our aims. Thanks to all the listeners who stayed with us so far, I think, and that's great that you have interest in the topic, and I hope we can connect more to collaborate and stop financing factory farming altogether. Thank you.
Thank you once again, Alessandro. And thanks to our listeners for tuning in. Remember to subscribe to the SVF Early Warning System newsletter to stay updated on these crucial issues. And don't forget to follow more episodes from the Asia for Animals coalitions, especially if you're keen on policy advocacy. We have a lineup of engaging episodes coming in the next few months that you won't want to miss. Your support and engagement are crucial as we work together towards a more humane world. Until next time, stay engaged, stay informed, and continue to be a voice for the voiceless. Thank you.
Thanks for listening. You can find everything you need to know about our work and connect with us at asiaforanimals.com. Tune in for the next episode. Asia for Animals Coalition, a united voice for Asia's animals.